Hello and welcome to today's FIFA World Cup post-match analysis session covering the Netherlands match against Sweden. You probably say there is really nothing here to analyze. Netherlands won the match 5-1, and I also assume that maybe the coaching staff from Sweden would discard analyzing this match and just forget about it to move forward. But let's see what we can learn about each team's formations and tactical shapes and positions based on skill corner tracking data. When we look into the FIFA post-match summary report, we see that for the Netherlands, 4-3-3 has been reported as their formation, and for Sweden, we had 3-5-2. We are going to use the TV broadcast tracking data provided by Skill Corner, where you can see on the right side for each player and the ball, we have their coordinates, 10 frames per second. You can see the green area covering the TV frame, and this is the moment that the Netherlands had the ball, but in a counter-attack, Sweden had a, let's say, a transition and made it possible to at least score one goal in this match and make the result in the end to be 5-1. For the method, we will apply what has been described in my PhD thesis, identification of team tactical formations and player positions in association football. And the idea simply is that for each team, we focus on the 10 outfield players playing from bottom to top on this screen. We divide the space into regions that each player is controlling, assuming they can arrive to do those cells when we have the assumption that they have the equal speed. And if we connect all the players to our neighbors of each other, we will end up with the graph representation shown on the right side. You can see it contains triangles. It contains the context of the team and also the nearest neighbors. This triangulation is called Delaunay triangulation. We will make it more stable by introducing a concept called shape graphs, and this is how it looks like. For the details, you can check my PhD thesis, but when we have this structure, we construct that over each frame per team, and then if we aggregate these, let's say, shape graphs, so we'll end up with what we call frequent shape graph that has been described in the second chapter of my PhD thesis. So here you can see on the left side the frequent shape graph for the Netherlands in the first half, where the location of the players are simply their average locations, but the edges are the frequent shape graph edges that have been present in at least more than 1/3 of the in-play frames. So based on this visualization, we may argue that what FIFA has reported as a 4-3-3, we can maybe even make it more clear that it was a 4-3-3 with a single defensive midfielder, in this case 21, De Jong for the Netherlands. You can clearly see that he was playing as a bottom or the lower in the lower of the triangle in midfield, 21, 8, and 14. And when we look at the picture for Sweden, this is how it looks like on the right side. FIFA has reported that it was a 3-5-2, but based on the average locations in the first half, we have maybe a 5-3-2, and it's not really a, let's say, symmetric 5-3-2. You can see that the number 9 and 17 had a tendency to play on the left. And maybe we can argue that the reason is that they wanted to make use of this space that was left behind when number 22 from the Netherlands was playing up front. Clearly, at least it didn't show it itself in the results of the match. But that's how this one formation label can be, let's say, evaluated in terms of average locations we have here. But as we discussed before in my previous post-match analysis sessions, average locations are problematic. They are, let's say, just averages. It doesn't necessarily mean that the player spends most of the time in those locations. So what we can do maybe to explore it in more depth is use phases of play to divide the match time and these, let's say, frequent shape graphs accordingly. If we do that for the Netherlands, when the team had the ball and they didn't have the ball, I think we can say that clearly with the ball, they were playing higher up on the pitch compared to when they didn't have the ball, but also the structure more or less remains the same, 4-3-3 with a single defensive midfielder. It's obvious that when you have the ball, you want to play more wide, and when you are out of position, you are just more compact. So nothing surprising here. Let's see how the picture looks like for Sweden. So in possession, you can say that the fullbacks were playing higher up on the pitch. Again, no surprise. And you had this, maybe we can here argue that it's a 3-5-2, but interesting, 9 and 17 are more to the left. But out of position, it's really a 5-3-2. A question for you to answer maybe in the comments is that what's the meaning of having these intersected, let's say, edges in these frequent shape graphs, and what's the benefit of having overall this, let's say, graph representation overlaid on the average locations? So far we treated each team separately. One way to bring them together is using something that we call position movement diagrams, introduced in the chapter 5 of my PhD thesis, where for each match segment, here in this case, you are dividing it using the moments that substitutions have happened, but you can use goals or phases of play, or let's say the hydration break. And as you can see, both teams have came together. You see the Netherlands in orange playing from bottom to top and Sweden from top to bottom in blue. This is not simply the average locations, but also you have the two most common position movements that players make, and that gives you an additional information, not more than just focusing on one coordinate. In the next post-match analysis sessions, I'm going to talk more about this visualization and how it can be useful. For the next post-match analysis session, we are going to cover Belgium's tonight match against Iran, and this video is going to be in Persian or Farsi. And thanks for your attention.